Today, we're channeling our inner Dana White, and no, I'm not talking about slapping our wives. That is completely out of taste and disrespectful. Why would you even mention that? I'm talking about matchmaking some UFC fights for an upcoming card. The upcoming card I'm talking about is UFC 321, where we're going back to Abu Dhabi, and as per usual, we're going back in October 25th specifically. And typically, these Abu Dhabi cards are some of the best cards we ever have during the year, right? It's like International Fight Week, that's a great card. Abu Dhabi, great card. You know, these guys who live in Abu Dhabi, they have money out the wazoo. So we always got to spoil them a little bit more than the rest of the world, which, you know, I don't like, but it is what it is. I love Abu Dhabi cards. But today we're matchmaking them. So let's take a look at the rankings and let's see what our options are. So for the main event, what do we need for the main event? Well, we need a title fight on the main event, and typically when we're going to Abu Dhabi, we need a Muslim fighter. Now, last year, we didn't get a Muslim fighter in the main event, right? It was Topuria versus Holloway. We didn't get one there. We got one in the co-main event of Khamzat versus Robert Whittaker, but typically, it's an Islam Makhachev going there. It's a Habib that goes there. It's an Ankalaev that goes there, right? But this main event, we have a couple options for the main event, right? I'm thinking one of the options that's going to be cropping up is Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira 2. The rematch, they fought at UFC, I believe, 313. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they fought there. So they're on the same schedule, and this is a good, quick turnaround time. Now, I'm not too sure about Alex Pereira, what his position is. You know, is he going to be fighting for the belt next? Is it Yuri that's fighting for the belt next? We are not too sure. But another option we have is Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev fighting for the welterweight belt. Now, out of two of these options, right, we also have Merab Dvalishvili versus Corey Sandhagen, but that's not really, that doesn't scream Abu Dhabi. But JDM versus Islam Makhachev screams Abu Dhabi. It's basically just begging to be added to this card as a main event. And I think that's the main event you got to add. Now, I've seen some people talk about, oh, Magomed Ankalaev versus Pereira, main event, co-main event, Islam versus JDM. That's too much. The UFC loves to spoil Abu Dhabi, but they don't love them that much to give them like a generational pay-per-view. So I'm probably going to go with JDM versus Islam Makhachev for the main event of UFC 321. JDM coming off a win over Bilal Muhammad at UFC 315. A great fight where he showcased skills that he's going to need if he was going to be fighting Islam Makhachev next. Now Islam Makhachev coming off a win over Renato Moicano at UFC 311, right? Where it was supposed to be Arman Tsarukyan, but Arman Tsarukyan pulled out because apparently he missed weight or apparently had back issues, whatever narrative you want to believe. But Arman pulled out. Islam ended up fighting Moicano, and then because Jack Della Maddalena beat Bilal, Islam decided that he wanted to move up instead of fighting Ilia Topuria for his belt. So I think that's a great main event, but the co-main event, we need something good. We need something with stakes. This could be another title fight. It could also be a number one contender fight. Now, for the number one contender fight that I want to see Umar Nurmagomedov versus Song Yadong. I think this is a great fight for multiple reasons. Song Yadong coming off a win over Henry Cejudo on the fight night, Cejudo versus Song Yadong. It ended in a technical decision where there was a little bit of eye pokes, a little bit of some weird stuff going on. But at the end of the day, Song Yadong won, and he's actually shown some great promise throughout the latter bit of his career. I mean, he looked good against Corey Sandhagen. He was on his way to winning if he didn't get a doctor stoppage. Even some other fights, you know, against Petr Yan, he looked pretty good. There's been a bunch of fights from Song Yadong where he's really looked good. And Umar Nurmagomedov coming off his first and only ever loss to Merab Dvalishvili. Before that, he beat Corey Sandhagen in a decision. Before that, it was KO over Raoni Barcelos, who Raoni Barcelos has looked good in his past couple of fights. But Umar, he fought on 311 against Merab in the co-main event, and he lost a really close fight where he broke his hand. I think the timing should match up, right? At 311, he broke his hand. I'm not too sure how long it takes to heal from that hand injury he has, I assume it's probably going to be at least, at least 7 months, 6, 7 months. Don't turn that into an edit. 6, 7 months for him to be properly healed. So I believe the 321 card timeline is perfect for him. And going against Song Yadong, this is a banger of a fight because Song Yadong has great takedown defense, great boxing fundamentals, great grappling fundamentals, and Umar has, he is flashy striking, but is it super effective, especially when you're fighting a guy who has great takedown defense, who has great grappling, who has a solid boxing kind of base. So that'd be a great fight to watch, especially as a CoMain event, because that would be a #1 contender. And if Song Yadong, right, this is perfect for Song Yadong because he's fighting Umar, who's coming off a loss and has only ever lost. He doesn't know what it feels like to lose. So now that he's at the very top, the highest level of fighting, his confidence is at an all-time low. This is a perfect time for a guy like Song Yadong, who's super well-rounded, to fight a guy like Umar. Now, the next fight I want to add onto this card is another #1 contender, because we don't have 2 titles or 2 huge fights. We're gonna have 2 #1 contender fights. The other #1 contender fight I want to see added to UFC 321, I want to see Shawn Brady versus Garry. This is a great fight, right? Everybody wanted to see the Buck versus the Cuck, but at this point, Buckley lost to Kamaru Usman, so that fight really doesn't make sense. I want to see Bilal versus Uzimir. I think that's a great fight. So in the meantime, I think as a #1 contender, because Shavkat Rakhmonov is injured, I want to see Shawn Brady versus Garry. I think that'd be a great fight. Garry coming off a win over Carlos Prates. Before that, he lost to Shavkat in a very close fight. And Shawn Brady coming off a submission win over Leon Rocky Edwards, the former champion. So I think that's an all-around great fight. Established themselves as a #1 contender, especially being on the same card as the welterweight belt. This would be just a great fight. Next fight down, sorry. I want to see Ysef Zalal versus Josh Emmett. Ysef Zalal, I believe he's Arab, right? And Abu Dhabi's in the Arab Emirates or something. It's an Arab land. It's a Middle Eastern land. So Ysef Zalal, send him to Abu Dhabi. Send him against a Josh Emmett. That'd be a great fight because Josh Emmett can take guys' heads off, and Ysef Zalal is afraid of getting punched in the head. So that's just a great all-around fight. And then the last fight on the main card, I want to open up the main card with a banger fight. I want to see Azamat Mzakonov versus #9 ranked Vulcan Uzimir. Vulcan Uzimir coming off a loss to Carlos Alberg. Azamat Mzakonov coming off a win over Ribeiro. But originally, Mzakonov was supposed to fight Johnny Walker, but Johnny Walker pulled out. And Vulcan Uzimir coming off a loss. So Azamat Mzakonov is finishing nearly everybody, and he's on a huge win streak. He hasn't lost yet. And Vulcan Uzimir was seeing a little bit of a resurgence in his career, I thought at least, right? He knocked out Johnny Walker. He's on his way up, and he actually looked pretty good in his last fight against Carlos Alberg, but Carlos Alberg got the win pretty obviously. And Azamat Mzakonov, this guy needs to fight up. He fought Alonzo Menifield. He fought Ribeiro short notice. So give him a little bit of a step up, because most of the guys in the top 7, top 8, they're pretty much all booked up. So this would be a great fight to add, especially as a main card opener, because most likely there will be a finish in that fight. Azamat Mzakonov always goes for a finish, and Vulcan Uzimir tries to go for a finish the best he can. But let me know, what fights would you want to see on UFC 321 in Abu Dhabi? What fights would you not want to see in UFC 321 Abu Dhabi? Let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Dang MMA, signing out. Peace.